Recording in progress.
Okay, so welcome to A&P class. We are gonna have a short day today. I just want to remind you, if you want to be on the Remind text group, you can do so by going through a website. And you can click this instructions and go straight from your phone. You can text this number, this message to this number, or there's a, you can do it through the internet too. So Remind is web-based and also app-based. So I send out my messages through actually I did through the app last night. So anyway, I can see who's in here just in case you were wondering, am I supposed to be getting these? But so I do have Amy. Okay, and Emma's on here. Yeah.
Maybe she put my number on.
Probably so. And then I've got Olivia on here. Okay, so if you have a phone and you want to have it text you, you can, but you don't have to. So there is that. That just lets you know more independently than your people that are in charge of you. So, all right, so today's going to be short. We're going to finish up our notes. I woke up last night at 12 because the dog was barking. Well, she doesn't bark. She goes, ruff, ruff. And she'll just keep going ruff, until I wake up. And so I woke up at 12 and I was like, what do you want, dog? I just let you out. I let her out about 9. So usually anyway, she went outside and she potty and I was like, okay, whatever, go back to sleep. Yes, I get to get 6 hours before my alarm goes off. 2 o'clock. I was like, what? What is your problem? I was like, I'm taking you out, but if you don't pee, she did. She went out and peed. I'm like, okay, do this, 4 hours. 4 o'clock. I was like, dog, what? Took her out. She peed again. I was like, okay, well, maybe you have some kind of bladder infection. I'm like, okay, there's 2 hours till my alarm. I can do this. And at 5:30, I'm like, you want to eat now? Okay, fine. So I let her outside. She peed and then she ate. And I was like, and then I put her in bed with me. And then my alarm, actually, I turned off my 6 o'clock alarm. I was like, this is not happening. I'll let the 7 o'clock. And she started barking at 7 again. I'm like, really? So I didn't get her out. I was like, you're going to have to just sit in there. You're going to be fine. So finally, Mr. Fulgerson got up and he's like, you need to go outside. So he took her out, but he didn't actually make her go outside. So she peed in the living room. So she's got to go to the bathroom. So whatever, she's outside right now. Anyway, I just tell you that not so funny story to let you know that my brain is not all here today. I have said complete wrong things. I was trying to do dihybrid crosses in genetics for biology, and I think I said everything okay the second time, but I was like, please, you have to tell me. If you're like, why is she doing that? You have to say something. Don't just kind of sit there and wonder. Ask me because I need help today. So anyway, needless to say, I ran out the door getting all of my children here, which is an accomplishment. I got them all here with me, but I have no books and no notes. And so we'll just help each other and we'll finish up as quick as we can and go from there. So I have to go home at lunch to get the rest because I can't do 8th grade without my books. So there it is. All right, so let's look at our notes then, and let's see if you needed help finishing things up. I believe we left off on commissures. Is that right, maybe? Okay, so what are those? Let's just start over here. Todd, we'll just go around and we'll all help each other. So. Yeah, so they're connections of axons letting you talk, okay, to both sides of the brain. Unique to the human population, most people are what side dominant? Do we have any lefties in here? Left-handed people, one? Yeah, it's very unusual. But what's also unusual is that no other, not apes, not monkeys, no other mammals have a more dominant side. It's a human uniqueness. It's fascinating. I don't know, it would be interesting to just plumb the depths of that. Is that because of the fall? Is that just the way it was intended? Were our brains intended to work better a long time ago? I don't know. That's a learned skill, and it could be that your connections are more secure. You have more connections between the sides. So everybody's brain is unique, even though we have, we talked about all the different parts. You have those parts, but you also have uniquenesses in. So like some guys might have more severed connections between their corpus callosum. So their right and left side don't communicate as quickly, but some guys have more of those connections still, and they can think more like that. Same for women, they're just brains. We have tendencies, but they're all unique. All of our brains are unique, so. Right and left is an interesting thing. They used to think that left hand was like you were a sinful person or something. I do remember, who was telling that their stories? Was it somebody in here that said that their grandma, they wrapped her arm up, so her left arm, so she couldn't write with it? Is that in this? No, somebody they wrapped their arm up and said, you cannot use this arm. And so she learned to write with her right hand, but it was not her dominant arm. So in fact, my grandfather, he's a lefty. And he remembers the teacher taking the chalk out of his hand as a little kid, out of his left hand and putting it in his right hand and forcing him to write that way. So he did learn to write with his right hand, but he was dominant on the left, like shooting and all the other things that you have a dominant side for. He does it left-handed. So interesting. Okay, let's look at these on your own real quick. The main question was, I can't do it upside down, but we won't today. Won't make my brain do that. What area of the brain was most likely damaged in this concussion? Difficult time speaking. Wernicke's? What? Broca's? Is it Broca's or Wernicke? I don't remember. Broca's. Okay, great. I was just reading lips incorrectly. Yeah, good. I don't have mine, so we're gonna go with the majority here. Blindness can occur. It says, which two areas of the brain are involved with vision? What are the two parts there? Yeah, visual cortex, visual association. Which physical part of the brain was damaged? Yeah, so that occipital lobe back in here that has this cortex in it. Okay, good. Moving right along. Other important structures in the brain. Basal nuclei. Okay. I was going along and then I forgot to go along. So Emma, tell us what you put on basal nuclei. Perfect. Lumps of gray matter. Okay. Corpus striatum is made up of blank, blank, and blank, blank. Yeah, I think that sounds right. Lentiform and caudate, maybe. I can't see it, so it sounds great. What is the corpus striatum? Where is that? The two basal nuclei, the lentiform and the caudate, are called the corpus striatum. They're the largest basal nuclei. So these are ones, right? It's in the middle of the brain. You look at 247, you can see it. That's the corpus striatum that has the caudate and lentiform. Okay, I'm just trying to remember why in the world we need to know about this, because in this is an important structure in the brain, and it's lumps of gray matter. So this is specific lumps of gray matter that have specific jobs. There's nothing that's not useful in the brain, right? So the subthalamic nucleus is in the diencephalon, I think maybe. Yeah, diencephalon. That's a weird word. The substrate nigra is in the midbrain. Okay, so those two are, it talks about there being basal nuclei in the cerebrum, but these last two, the subthalamic nucleus and the substantia nigra, whatever, are not in the cerebrum. They're further down. That's all that it's saying, in midbrain and in the diencephalon. Okay, what's the function of the nuclei? That's probably important. Okay, it's fine.
Planning, initiation, maintenance, and stopping movement.
A lot of things. So there's a lot going on there. Planning, initiating movement, stopping movement. What was the other thing you said?
Maintenance.
Maintenance. Okay. All right. Imagine damaging these things and what can happen with the damaged part. There's so many structures in the brain, so many things that could go wrong. The fact that your brain even forms correctly in the womb, that's a miracle. Your whole body's a miracle, but the brain especially, that it forms correctly and produces the functions. It's amazing. So the amygdaloid nucleus is part of the blank system, limbic system, and this plays a role in, I'm gonna let you keep going. Okay. Okay, so a lot of base emotions are in there. So as part of the limbic system, it plays the role in mood, emotion, fear, the sense of pain and pleasure. When I was in training to be a teacher, we went to a special special, I guess it was just a training class with a lady, and she talked about the amygdala. I can't even say that right. She called them screaming almonds, and they're associated with emotion, right? She said, if you ever come across a student where you put your hand on them because you're trying to comfort or instruct them and they jerk away, that's an amygdaloid response. There's been trauma in their life, and so their limbic system takes over. And because they have these memories stored in these screaming almonds, as she called them, they have them stored there. That's fight or flight. It immediately switches over to fight or flight, and so they'll react. So if you ever come across that, if you're working with kids or whatever, know that there has been trauma that has caused that child to fear instantly. And it's not that you are doing anything to make them afraid, it's that their body responds that way because of fear. So if you have like an unusual sense of like you're afraid of, my son, I don't know, my son is afraid, is nearly terrified, not really terrified, but he does not like the smell of pennies, like any kind of metal object. And like when his brothers put pennies in their mouth, he like freaks out. It's like, oh, it stinks, I don't smell metal. I mean, like he doesn't want change. Like when he loses a tooth, he would rather be bills. I mean, there's something, some kind of trauma, and I don't know what it is. Maybe he's afraid he choked on it, or he almost choked on it once, or I don't know, but he cannot handle that metallic smell. So that's something in his amygdaloid process that has gotten a little screwy. So I don't know, but it's just kept up in there. And I think we could probably work through that. That is part of the subconscious brain, not the conscious brain. Some of that is, so working with the subconscious brain can help with that, but maybe I need to help him with that some. So we just kind of laugh at him. Here's the penny. No, I don't want to see that. So anyway, probably shouldn't laugh. The hippocampus is a seahorse-shaped structure that is involved in memory. Okay. Does it say what kind of memory? I don't remember. Yeah. Significant part of your memory. Person's name is stored. The amygdaloid remembers emotions that you relate to the person. So you think of their name, and then with their name comes the hippocampus. I had an interesting story. So there's this guy I graduated high school with, and for his daughter dances with Sita, and so I see him occasionally, but I had this weird emotional memory that was like terror associated with him, and he never did anything to me, but it was stuck in my amygdala. I had to like pray and work through that. So I actually was like, for the first time in probably a year and a half, I talked to him yesterday. I was not afraid. It's like, thanks Lord for healing that, because I don't know what that was. But you can get weird emotions trapped in your brain, weird emotional memories that can, or you can associate an emotional memory with someone, an object, or something else. And those can be healed. But being aware that it's there and that it needs healing is important too. So yeah. Okay, the ventricles, what are those things? That's okay. They're just cavities. Yeah, just so like openings. Okay, so when we look at 249, you can see the brain there. It's got a right lateral ventricle, left lateral ventricle. When we get to the heart, that word ventricle might make more sense. You might have known, okay, so the parts of the heart, there's a right atrium and left atrium, right ventricle and left ventricle. It's an opening. It's like an empty space in the heart that the blood passes through. So in the brain, there are empty spaces too, but it's not blood passing through those. That would be the cerebral spinal fluid, which I think comes in. The cavities in the midbrain. What is the function of these? These are hollow spaces filled with cerebrospinal fluid, which is probably next. So the function of the ventricles is to, did you get those? You want to look at hers? Yeah, cushion and protect. So cushion and protect the brain. All right, back to Todd. The blank, it's the CSF. Cerebrospinal fluid. Fills the empty spaces. The CSF is secreted by ependymal cells, together with their support cells and blood vessels, which are collectively called the. Yeah, that, I don't know how to say that either. Choroid or lacy, I don't know. Choroid plexus. Their tissues have a lacy look to them. And again, that is what's making the cerebrospinal fluid. So that is happening. Does it have it in the picture? No, I was just gonna see if in some locations with the ventricles, there are other specialized cells, ependymal, that make them. So it's just in, maybe even lining the ventricle. And it's making the fluid. So your body's making the fluid that it needs. Okay. And I didn't even go into the lateral, ventricle, third, fourth, central canal. I didn't go into any of that stuff. I didn't feel like that was important. Okay. So let's look at these on your own. It's 250. Some people developed a disorder, which their hands shake uncontrollably, even when they're sitting still doing nothing. Does anybody know the name of that? Michael J. Fox has it. I'm trying to remember. Huh? Yes, Parkinson's is what it is the name of that disease. Which part of the brain might be the source of this type of tremor? What? Basal nuclei? Okay, which is, yeah. There's a guy at our church that went in and they put a node in his brain on the part that was causing the tremors because he had Parkinson's. And ever since then, tremors stopped. Because the node is sending an electrical current, telling it to stop sending that message. It's like blocking the message for the brain. It's kind of crazy. It's getting it back in line. I didn't know they could do that, but was very successful surgery for him. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I know. Yeah, I'm sure it might have been feeling like returning back to normal though. Because I'm sure, he's older, so I don't know if maybe he feels like, oh, I'm finally right again. I don't know. It would be weird though, having to have done that. And the fact that you're not controlling it either, an uncontrollable shaking in your hands, I don't know, it'd be hard. So, okay, 8-8. Some fear reactions seem to be a natural part of the brain that require no learning. For example, an infant rodent will be afraid of a cat, even though it's never seen a cat before, unless his name is Desperate. Anybody seen that movie? Desperate. Okay. Where most likely is this information stored? Yeah, those screaming almonds, amygdaloid process and the amygdala. That's a fun movie. It's kind of sad. Okay. If you haven't seen Despero, it's a good one to see. Okay, protection of the brain. Brain is covered by 5 layers. I don't even know where we are. Okay, great. Leah knows. What are those 5 layers? I think that might be arachnoid, like the arachnophobia. It's like spider-like. Superior sagittal sinus. Well, maybe this one. I remember on my notes I had issues. So yeah, I only found 4. Oh, maybe actually this is what it is. The first layer protection, it's on 250. It begins with the skull. So adding the skull in, and then some 4 layers. I know why you probably put superior sagittal sinus, because that's the only thing. Skull doesn't make sense necessarily, but skull is there. This is just an opening, a sinus cavity in the brain. So like you have sinuses that can get infected, it's just openings. So could you list them for us? Yeah, so that would be the skull, and then you're the dura mater, and hold on a second.
Because I wrote Purostine or whatever, and I wrote Parameter and
Arachnoid mater. Yes.
That's what I wrote, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, that makes. What do you have it? Oh, okay. Yes, that's right. Perosteum. And because the perosteum, if we go back and look at what that is, let me find it here again. I don't even see it.
And then the images.
Yeah, it does. Oh, here it is. It is firmly attached to the peroneum discussed in module 3 of the skull so that they form one layer. The dura mater extends down to the major. The space in between the arachnoid and the pia mater is the subarachnoid space. You know, I doubt that that is something that we're gonna necessarily need to worry too much about. I just realized one problem. Oh, I can do it, never mind. I was thinking, I don't have my notes with all the stars, but I can look at the test and help you do stars, what you need to study for. I don't know, the meninges might be a part of it. What is that?
That's
Just
the
it all made
dura
up?
mater, arachnoid major, and pia mater.
Oh, that's the 3 maters. Okay. The 3 tissue layers. All right, I don't know what I had there and I can't look. I mean, it's confusing. I remember being confused in the section and so I don't know what the 5 layers are. Does it say? It doesn't even say that, those words. No. The many layers of protection are shown in figure something. It doesn't really say. So, okay, that just says many layers. I tried to summarize, but apparently it was confusing. It's fine. Okay, inflammation of the meninges or the 3 tissue layer is called meningitis. Does anybody know how to test to see if you have meningitis? Simple test. You ready? If your neck, if you have severe pain bringing your neck down, you have meningitis. It's because the meningitis the tissue layers aren't just around the brain, they're around the spinal cord as well. So if you, I mean, not just like, I was very tight just now going, oh gosh, I'm tight here, but like it's painful and you can't bend your neck down. That's swelling and inflammation in the meninges. And it can be caused by viruses or bacteria. What's interesting, bacterial meningitis is more deadly than viral. So meningitis of any kind is not good, right? But there you go. There's your little tidbit for the day.
And we painted the whole house on the inside. And me and my brother and mom went to go sleep at my grandparents' house, but my dad had to stay at home to the work the next day. And he has a CPAP machine. And he wore that night, and the next morning he could not move without like excruciating pain. He's like, that's the thing. He's the highest pain in his person. And they went to the doctor and found out there was like his brainstem was really swollen. And it was like lots of pain. The nurse told him like she was on the ambulance.
Yeah.
But I was really, is that like
Probably had it was either swelling of the meninges or the actual brainstem. But if he was functioning well and it was just painful, it might have been swelling around the brainstem.
he couldn't even like he was laying back, he couldn't even move his toes. Like he was
So much, it could be so much pressure on the nerves that was cutting off the signal too. Yeah. That's crazy. So yeah, if you're concerned about that, that's something to get checked out immediately. If you're not getting the range of function that you should be. So paying attention to that. Okay. The CSF flows from the ventricles to the blank space. Okay, subarachnoid space flows around the brain and the spinal cord. CSF is recycled back into the blood at the granulations. They like that. So they're saying it looks like a spider web in your brain. It's basically what that's saying. Some coloring exercises and on your own. So the brain is protected. If that fluid starts to be in excess and put pressure on your brain, that's a problem. They often drill holes in your skull to help alleviate that pressure because damage can be caused. Okay, last 2 on this page. It says, what effect would this condition have on the brain? I don't know what the effect. Damage to any of them. Let's see. Besides the large superior sagittal sinuses, there are smaller dural sinuses. Damage to any of them can cause bleeding into the subdural space. This is called a subdural hematoma. What effect would this condition have on the brain?
It's true, because it's bleeding. Well, it's constant.
Pressure to feel less burning.
That's interesting. I wonder if the subdural space is lined in such a way that it protects from brain tissue. Because the subdermal hematoma, I don't think it kills the brain tissue. And it could be because there's layers of protective So, but it is the bleeding into there is going to cause increased pressure, which would increase pressure against the cranium, which would stop certain functions, being able to feel your toes or whatever. So,
It was, they said that the CPAP pushed extra, like, the pancakes into it, and it, the pancakes what made all of it happen.
that chemical, that's fascinating. Not good. So I'm glad that they got him taken care of quickly though.
Yeah.
So and he's better now. He's not suffering.
Oh, no,
from
he's
pain from it. Okay, that's good.
I don't even know how they released it, but they gave him like, I can't remember, like really high, like very intense pain medication.
Yes,
And-
morphine.
Yeah, it didn't affect him at all. Like he was,
Yeah, that's that.
it's like the oil-based pains.
Yes, yeah, and that's fascinating. They
Don't
all
do
they
that,
just, yeah, don't do it. Don't be sniffing paint
Don't
either.
do
You know why you can't buy spray paint unless you're 18?
because of that.
Yeah, because people sniff it. Because of the chemicals that allow it to spray out. Can cause you to get high, also will kill your brains. So don't sniff paint. You also look weird too. No, I'm looking at- Okay. All right, 8:10. When someone fractures a skull, the meninges can be torn. This can cause CSF to leak out the nose or the ears. The situation is dangerous not only because it indicates severe damage to the head, but also because it increases the risk of meningitis. Why would leakage of CSF out of the body increase the risk of meningitis?
Stuff can get out, stuff can get in.
That's exactly right. If there's a pathway for it to get out, there's a pathway for bacteria to get in. Just like any kind of cut in your skin opens up your body for infection. So yeah, that is definitely, I mean, person with a spinal injury left untreated or like a brain injury left untreated with CSF fluid leaking, that's not good. Okay, last is this crazy picture of our reflex arc, okay? And the book has a couple of those too. This is a cross section of the spine. So I'm trying to think, sacral plexus. I don't know where that is, but I'm going to look it up real quick because I want to know which part. Sacral plexus. Yeah, I know, it was hard because I didn't do the whole thing. The nerve plexus, which provides motor and sensory nerves to the posterior thigh, pelvis, lumbosacral plexus, lumbar vertebrae, lumbar, so cervical, thoracic, lumbar. Okay, I was trying to figure out where this sacral plexus is. It's in the lumbar section of the lumbar vertebrae. So we're talking the down low part of your back right here. And that's where this cross section of this picture came from. Okay, I didn't really give a whole lot of notes. I kind of summarized a bunch of this, and then so you probably needed help looking up the answer. That's okay. I think because you didn't have to read anything because I was going to talk you through this graphic, so I didn't have you write anything down. So let's just talk through this graphic a second and look and see what's happening. All right, so dorsal means back. So that means like on the back part of your body. Okay, that's the dorsal. Ventral is the front, but it's just meaning facing in towards the abdominal cavity. So the ventral. You have nerves coming off. The left-hand side is what it actually looks like. The right-hand side, they diagrammed it with arrows so you can see how the nerve signal is traveling through there. So we've got portions of this spine. They have the central canal right in the center that allows other nerves to pass down through there. We have white matter and gray matter inside of the spinal cord. This is called the dorsal horn on the, I guess that would be that person's right side. And then the dorsal root, I guess that's also a dorsal horn right there. The root, because the root is this nerve coming out. And this is, doesn't have a label, our sensory neuron, mixed peripheral neuron going to the muscle, the receptor, okay, is coming in here. And so this whole system right here, let's just talk, okay, so we've got our receptor. That's an actual structure. Let's say it's in the knee, okay? That senses pressure, okay? You know how they hit your knee and try to get you to have that reflex, right? So we'll just say that's what that receptor is. The receptor sends a signal along the sensory neuron through the dorsal root ganglion. Okay, What? Dorsal root ganglion. This nerve section is called the dorsal root. And a ganglion is, let me think through this. That was a cell ganglion. I don't know what a ganglion is. That's okay for you to not know. Let me read about that. You can always look it up. Obviously, I need that too. The dorsal root ganglion is where the sensory cell body. Yeah, I was thinking it was a cell body. Okay, so the ganglion is where the cell body is housed. So remember, in a normal nerve cell, you've got cell body, axon, dendrites. So the ganglion is where the cell body is at. So anytime you see ganglion, that's what we're talking about. And you can see it, they cut away, and you can see that sensory neuron cell body right there. And then the root is the axon. So this blue arrow is representing an axon, okay? And it's going into the spine. And then there's a small neuron called an interneuron between the two. So it's a tiny little neuron that can either trigger a reflex response or stop the signal if it's not too intense, okay? If it does trigger the reflex, if it's intense enough, meaning it comes enough times, the pressure is coming a lot in your knee, then it'll send through this motor neuron back out to the muscle, causing that knee-jerk reaction or to pull your hand away from the stove or whatever it is. Likely because we're in the lower lumbar, these are connecting to the legs. And so you would get like a knee-jerk kind of thing. All right, I'm trying to think, is there ventral horn? Ventral means front, dorsal means back. Okay, I think we've talked about all these different parts. Now, let's see if we can answer this question. I know we didn't really, unless you read it, you're not going to be able to answer this. Where are the cell bodies of the neurons that make up the ventral root? So this is dorsal, so the ventral root. It's going to be, I don't even see ventral root in this picture. Does it have it on this picture? Ventral horn, column, ventral root is the front root. So it's got to be in the ventral root ganglion, I would think. What does it say? Ventral horn.
Because I had no idea.
Interesting. And it's asking where is what is the cell body? Is that what it said? Cell body. Okay. Well, okay. So I'm looking for comparisons. I'm going to turn this around so I can read this again. The dorsal root ganglion is where the sensory cell bodies are housed. The ventral root leaves the spinal cord at the anterior horn and carries afferent action potential transfer. The ventral roots have no ganglia because the motor neuron cell bodies are located within the gray matter of the spinal cord. Okay, it just wanted to clarify, because I have a dorsal root ganglion labeled here, there is nothing labeled like that for the ventral horn or ventral root because there isn't one. Because the cell body is actually located back in the gray matter, which is the ventral horn. Okay, so that's the explanation for why that is what it is. But because the motor neuron, and I guess it's right here. You can see this motor neuron cell body is right here. And then it passes down the axon there. Okay. Purpose of the reflex arc. I don't know where we are in the saying of things.
I think it was. No, I haven't said anything.
I think you said the right one.
Oh, yeah, I did last page.
Okay, perfect. Purpose of the reflex arc.
To protect your body against responses that are not processed by the brain first.
Exactly. Protection is their key purpose with SuperClick. So it's, yeah, you want me to type it? Here, you speak slowly and I'll type it.
To protect your body.
Really good. I do a lot of typing for my kids. And you wouldn't do great.
Not processed.
No, you're fine.
By the brain first.
Thank you.
What is that?
Okay, what's so elegant about the circuits in the spinal cord? Divergent circuit. Kenna, what'd you put about the divergent circuit? Its elegance. Okay, so at the divergent circuit, it's sending a signal up to the brain and then back around to that motor neuron to get that. So the brain is informed and then the muscle moves almost simultaneously, but I feel like the muscle often moves before the brain's informed. I mean, if you think about, you touch something, and I've even at times touched something and pulled my hand away thinking it was hot, and it was actually a cold sensation, but it was so intense that my reflex arc kicked in. Okay, so. Okay, so that divergent circuit is going to split that signal, one to the brain, one back to the muscle to cause that. Yes.
This is Rochelle. On the convergent circuit, I wrote allows the effector to be controlled by reflex arc and brain, but in this first one. What is the difference?
Okay.
I just realized that.
Okay, so this divergent circuit is when I get sensory information from outside.
Out first and then, so like.
So okay, so let's say the sensor's in my middle finger. The sensory receptor's there. It sends the message to my spinal cord and immediately turns around and sends it back to my hand and splits that same signal up to my brain.
Okay.
So that's divergent. But convergent is saying that I can, along that same pathway that would jerk my arm back, my brain can also just send a message along that motor pathway to move my hand, like voluntarily.
Okay, so this one's more voluntary. This one.
Exactly. Yes, that's more reflex, but it's the same nerve that's being stimulated. So I can involuntarily do it or voluntarily. So instead of having two separate nerves to control the movement of this finger, I have one nerve that can either do the reflex or the actual brain from my brain. So this would be sensory causing the response. This would be brain causing the response. So, make sure that I've said all of that right. Converging in this circuit, two neurons both synapse with the same effector neuron. The first neuron is the association that we've got all that. Controlled says allows the effector, in this case, the flexor muscle, to be controlled by both the reflex arc and the brain. Yeah, that's what we said. So allows control through reflex arc, controlled by reflex arc and brain through same nerve. Okay. All right, last on your own. We have already talked about this so many times. When you touch a hot stove, your hand pulls back quickly as a result of the reflex arc. However, when you touch warm water, you do not pull your hand back quickly. Apparently, the reflex arc has a decision-making mechanism that interprets the afferent signals and determines whether or not the reflex should be activated. Which neuron in the reflex arc is responsible for this decision-making?
For the association neuron.
Yeah, that little guy in the middle, right? This one. This interneuron association neuron is probably what the book calls it. Okay, so that's what is making, it's the one saying, yeah, the signal's a lot, or nope, the signal's not so bad, okay? Okay, make sure that I've, sensory, yes. That's not what that says. Did I read it wrong? Sensory afferent neurons must be responsible for this. Afferent neurons from the pain receptors. Wait. Hold on, is this 811? No, that's 812. Did I miss it? No, I just did not down well enough. So the afferent signal, okay, it interprets, it has a decision making. What does this say? Let me read this. Sensory afferent neurons must be responsible for this. Afferent neurons from pain receptors synapse with association neurons that in turn synapse with the appropriate afferent neurons to the flexor muscle. Afferent neurons from other receptors, such as the light, touch, or warm temperature, are not part of the particular reflex. The reflex has no decision-making function outside of its own hardwiring. So it's actually the sensory neuron. I was wrong about, I was thinking incorrectly about that. Afferent neurons from pain receptors synapse with it. So light pressure, light touch, warm temperature, those are different sensory neurons. So it's a pain neuron, pain receptor that is going to be attached to. So it looks like it has decision making, but it's not. It's just the hardwiring of it. Okay. That makes sense. I was thinking that it's not. I was wrong. Not the first time today. Won't be the last. Okay, the descending pathway in the spinal cord sends messages. So descending pathways. So we're talking about the different pathways in the brain. It sends messages from it has to be brain, right? To the, is it CNS? To the what? To the muscles. Okay, so this is from CNS to muscles. Try again with some capitalization. Wow. And what is this pathway called? Motor pathway, and that makes sense. Oops. How many axons or neurons are used?
3.
Okay, so we have 3 total neurons used. So let me think about that. It's going from the brain. So out of the brain, there's going to be a neuron coming out of the brain, an effector neuron. There's an association neuron. Is it in the spine? I don't know. Let's look. Motor pathway. We have a very long nerve going to the spine. In the spine, there's a small association neuron. And then there's so it's long, short, and then another long one. So those 3. The ascending pathway sends the messages from the receptors to the brain. This is called the sensory pathway. And how many is on this one?
I wrote 3, but I don't think that's right.
I think there's more. I think it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 4. Okay, so if you look at primary neuron on this, so I'm on page 262 to find this. So you see the primary neuron, it's going to the spine, and there's another association neuron in the spine. So there's an association neuron. That then goes to another neuron that travels up to the brain, the secondary neuron, and then there is what they call a tertiary neuron in the brain. Now, why would you want 4 instead of 3 neurons? What's being sent?
Bunch of information from the-
Yeah, sensory information. Do I want all that getting to my brain? Sensory information, I don't want to feel my socks all the time, right? So it allows for more breaks for those association neurons to be like, yeah, we're not going to pass this along. Okay, so that makes, if you can think of that, I want those signals from my brain to my muscles. I want that happening. There doesn't need to be blockage of that. If there is, then we don't move. But I do not necessarily want, last night, this hair kept getting in my eye. It was really irritating. I was like, oh, can I just sleep without? I mean, of course, with all the other things, dumb dog. I couldn't sleep well, but I don't really want all that sensory information, especially not when I'm sleeping, right? So the association neurons provide another place for that message to stop. Done. All right, I do want to look. I'm going to stop sharing my screen though, and I do want to look at test real quick and see what I want you to start. So, okay, that's fine. Okay, and then we'll be done. 45 minutes. Well, by the time I'm done, I'll probably 40 minutes early. So your homework is to study for and take this test. So, but you have a little bit of, well, we have a little bit of extra time now, but okay, let me preview this quiz. So things, go back to the first page. We'll just start there. There is a lot of vocabulary type things, okay? So I'll try and go through and highlight the vocabulary you need. So let me go back to page 1 too myself. Okay, so the ischemia and hypoglycemia, those are some vocabulary. Under brain anatomy, white and gray matter. Decussation is another vocabulary. It's kind of in the middle under medulla, decussation. What else? And then next page. let's see. Oh, where is that one? Dampening, let's do that's definitely vocabulary that you need to know. It's under cerebellum. It's the fourth one underneath that, dampening. Okay. Now going down, I'm just still looking for vocabulary, so turn the page again to page 3 under commissures. That's another vocabulary. Commissures down at the bottom. Oh, I skipped one. Shoot, let me find it. Where is that? Oh, sorry, it was back on the front page. After decussation, 2 down from that, vital functions, that's another vocabulary. Sorry, missed that one. And then I'm double checking to make sure there's nothing on page 4. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Yeah, that's everything. Okie dokie. This is only a 7-question test, mainly because you are going to need to identify the areas of the brain. So we didn't actually have a brain picture on here. So you're going to want to put on the side somewhere, study this figure on page, I'm about to tell you, page 8, no, 237. The chapter, module 8, page 237. It's that black and white with some iridescent colors, MRI image of the brain. So it's got cerebrum, cerebellum, corpus callosum, the brainstem, which is made up of midbrain, pons, medulla, pituitary gland, Geary, Sulci, all of those. Yeah, study that picture. Okay. Additionally, yeah, if you study that picture, you're going to be fine. There's 2 questions over that picture. On your page, let's go back to your notes on the way it's organized is going to be important. Okay, the diencephalon is made up of 2 parts, and it probably wasn't organized in your notes real. I'm at the top of page 2, very top. The diencephalon is made up of the thalamus and the hypothalamus. So just know that that's all you're going to need to know how that's organized there. Yeah, that's all the diencephalon. Okay. What else do you need to know here? We need to know about the ventricles. So I think that was on page 4. Let me check. Okay. Yeah, so ventricles under, it says it's under this, the hippocampus right underneath that. So know about the purpose, the function of the ventricles. What are they and why are they there? What's the point of having these spaces in your brain? And then your short answer is about the reflex arc on the back page. Okay, so know about basically where it says reflex arc, the purpose of it. Understand all that goes on there. And what else? Okay, click on the right place. Here we go. And then I think the last one is, yeah, it's a massive, question 7 is a massive matching of functional areas of the cerebral cortex with their function. So if you look at your notes, this is pages 2 and 3, I think. Wait, yeah. So these functional areas of the cerebrum, it starts on the bottom of page 2. You don't have to know where it is, you have to know what it does. And this is where I was prepping you last week, talking about all these different things, like the visual cortex, it sees basic shapes. The visual association area makes sense of those shapes, it interprets them. So there's a big matching that has you matching up the area with the function. And like I said, a lot of the names tell you, but things like Wernicke's area, you may need to pay attention to that one. Probably also the Broca's area, make sure you know what those are doing, okay? But then that's all. So 7 questions, a lot of it's matching. You got this. Enjoy your extra 40 minutes, 39 minutes, and we'll see you guys next week. It will likely be in class. If not, I will send a message. So, all My family's done being sick. Dang it. We'll see you guys.